What if war destroyed your home and instead of rebuilding it, the government built you a whole new town from scratch? That's exactly what happened after the Second World War. From Stevenage to Milton Keynes, Britain's answer to bomb damage and overcrowding wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a revolution in how communities were imagined. But how did bombs falling in the 1940s lead to roundabouts, grid roads and shopping centres in the 1960s? And why do these places still divide opinion today? London in 1945 was a city of ruins. Whole streets were flattened, millions displaced. Our composite thread for today is Arthur, a planning officer in the Ministry of Towns and Country Planning, whose wartime job shifted from dealing with air raid damage to imagining an entirely new Britain. Arthur would have walked past whole blocks where only a church spire remained standing amongst the rubble. He wasn't alone in thinking, we can't just rebuild what was there, we need to do something better. But what did better mean? That's the question Britain was about to wrestle with. And if rubble was the start of the story, where did the vision for these new towns come from? Before the bombs even fell, reformers had been dreaming of planned communities. Ebenezer Howard's Garden City movement at Letchworth and Welling in the early 20th century offered a model. Green spaces, controlled growth and harmony between work, housing and leisure. Arthur would have studied these blueprints as civil servants dusted off pre-war ideas to apply to post-war chaos. It wasn't just about rebuilding, it was about replanning society itself. But dreams need laws. Which law actually made it happen? Enter the New Towns Act of 1946. For the first time, Parliament gave itself the power to create entirely new urban centres by statute. Arthur found himself working on Stevenage, the first official new town announced in 1946. Residents weren't always thrilled. One infamously painted "Stop the New Town" on the railway bridge. But the principle was clear. The state, not the market, would drive urban growth. It was revolutionary. Instead of patching up the slums, the government would wipe the slate clean and start again. But how did these places actually look on the ground? Ask anyone about Milton Keynes and they'll say, oh yes, the place with all the roundabouts. They're not wrong, there are over 130 of them. Arthur's colleagues embraced the idea of zoning, separating housing, industry and shopping into distinct areas, all linked by wide roads. It was modern, efficient and designed for the motor car. But this design sparked controversy. Was this vision of modernity human-centred or car-centred? Were planners building communities or traffic systems? What do you think? Do you live near a new town or in one? Do you see them as successes or soulless experiments? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'd love to hear whether you think planners got it right. But beneath the architecture lay a deeper question. Did the new town solve Britain's housing crisis? The promise was simple. Get people out of overcrowded Victorian terraces and bombed out streets into airy, green, well-planned towns. Tens of thousands moved from London to Harlow, Crawley, Basildon and others. Factories followed, bringing jobs with them. For many families, this was a dream come true. Running water, gardens, modern schools. Arthur, sitting in planning meetings, would have felt proud. Yet, critics asked, were people being uprooted from their communities and their roots severed? And then came the biggest experiment of them all, Milton Keynes. But why was this final new town so radical? Designated in 1967, Milton Keynes was the largest new town, aiming for 250,000 residents. It wasn't just about housing, it was about identity. Built on a grid of roads with a vast shopping centre at its heart, it looked more like an American city than a British one. Arthur, by now nearing retirement, would have seen Milton Keynes as a culmination of decades of work. But identity is tricky. Did Milton Keynes feel like a place, or just a planner's drawing come to life? Its detractors called it soulless. Its defenders said it was the future made concrete. If the planners built the towns, who actually made them livable? No matter how perfect the blueprint, it's people who make towns work. Schools, football clubs, pubs, churches, all the small social ties gave life to places that looked sterile on paper. Arthur, walking through a newly opened housing estate in Stevenage, might have smiled as kids played on grass verges, neighbours chatted over fences and allotments sprang up. Over time, the new towns became communities in their own right. Not perfect, but no community ever is. So, if new towns were meant to be the future, why did Britain stop building them? By the 1970s, enthusiasm waned. Rising costs, changing politics, and a shift toward private development meant the new town programme slowed, then stopped. Some flourished, others struggled, but they left a permanent mark on Britain's geography, redistributing population, shaping community patterns, and introducing a very different idea of what a town could be. Arthur retired in the late 1970s, his career bookended by Rubble and Roundabouts. Did he succeed? Perhaps partly. Britain's new towns are still here and still provoke debate. The new towns were Britain's attempt to turn disaster into opportunity, to use destruction as a chance to redesign society. They remind us that cities are never fixed. They're always experiments shaped by law, planning, and people. Thanks for walking a little further down the road of history with me. If you liked it, there's a button especially for that. And try this one. I think you'll like it. If you subscribe, you'll find the whole back catalogue. And if you ding the bell, you won't miss any new episodes. So until then, thanks so much. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.